there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today we have with us a very special guest, Daniele Moomey. Daniele Moomey is the Voice of Influence Director of Client Success. Her experience as a global trainer and project manager for a global customer service and satisfaction research company gives her the expertise in helping teams learn technical skills and assisting emerging leaders as they learn to build engaged productivity. That's a lot. I think I helped write that, and that's probably a big mouthful there, Danielle. But it's true. Like all of it is you. So welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast.
Well, thank you. I've always been behind the scenes, but now I'm in front. Here we go.
I know. It's so fun. So I feel like we should let the cat out of the bag at the very beginning. What's
Probably.
important for everybody to know about us?
Oh, that we're siblings, sisters.
We are sisters.
We go
And
back a few years.
yeah, a few. Um, Gosh, do you want to tell how we kind of started working together?
I mean, sure. Gosh, it was 2020, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
I think we can
was.
get a little personal too. Like, why did you move back and all that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was living in Virginia and working at a company there, global research company. And mom got sick, and I definitely decided that I didn't want to live with regret and not be here during her last few years. So, and that was, of course, unknownst COVID that came up in 2020. So I moved in February 2020 to Nebraska, just 3 weeks before the world shut down. And essentially 3 weeks before I also lost my job at the time that I brought with me. So, um, it was a little bit crazy. It was a challenging time just moving to a new city, having to find a job during COVID, which was nearly impossible. Of course, there was tons of layoffs going on, not a ton of people hiring. Just went through tons of different applications and interviews and such, and just nothing really worked out. And then, right before my birthday, I got a message from you. Hey, do you want to meet? And at a parking lot, because of course couldn't go inside anywhere. So we met in a parking lot, and you proposed me working for you, with you, I should say.
Yeah, that's very
Sorry,
important.
my bad, not for, but with. So anyway, yeah. So that's how we kind of started. It was let's see how this goes. Let's start. I was part-time at first, just trying to get my feet wet and learn a little bit more about the business and it's just what we're trying to do and how we want to grow and all the things. And that turned into, of course, the full-time position that I'm in now.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out. I was very excited. It just happened to work with some other transitions that were happening for us and um in very positive way. It was a great like shift. And so I think there was a little bit of nervousness for me, like, oh, does Danielle really want to work together? Like, will this hurt our relationship? Will it be okay? But you know what?
Right.
In the end, I personally thought, no, just don't see it being bad. I don't see a bad outcome here. And like you said, mom was sick. And so there was that whole other aspect of it would be so great if Danielle could be available when we need her to be available.
Yeah, that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, yeah, that initial like, whoa, do I want to do this? Like, do I want to work with my sister? Like, I think I could. I really actually I knew I could do it, but it was just like the unknown, right? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I didn't want it to just be like, oh, you know, she needs a job, we'll hire her because she can't get a job.
Right.
Um, and so I was, there was some of that, like hoping that I could prove myself to you. You know what I mean? And not just as a sister, but as a coworker.
Sure. Well, and I certainly wanted to make sure that you understood that I saw you as credible and that this was,
Right.
not just credible, but you had so much to offer in terms of who you are and the work that we were starting to do on a more regular basis. And turns out, gosh, you have really stepped into the role of helping us um, execute these in-person programs in in a more fun and organized and enjoyable fashion for everybody. And so you being a part of that whole piece of our business has been super, super important. And so I'm like, I don't know, like I just am really, really, really grateful that we have the opportunity to do this together because
Yeah.
it means a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. One of the things that you are just particularly gifted at is this idea or this strength, the strengths finders, like your one of your top strengths is woo,
Right.
which is huge in a business where there's a lot of strategic thinking going on, and we're doing a lot of like really serious stuff. And sometimes it's hard to keep it more light and fun, especially when you're working with other people. You want to do that because everybody works better when you're having fun
Right.
and when defenses are down, and you can enjoy that. So I know that you have a persona that you like to say.
Ah, yes. Yes.
It's not your only one, but it is one.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah.
tell
Well,
us
I
about
think,
that.
yeah. So I think that well, when working with clients in general, especially in what we do, um, I mean, just building the relationship, right, with whoever. And so by doing that is for me is being fun and being the cruise director, as I say, the Julie McCoy um, of the Love Boat or the
I feel
Voice of
like I need to
Influence
watch
boat.
that.
Yeah. But anyways, I love the cruise director role because first of all, I've always loved to be that person, the one in charge, or at least taking charge. Like you hand me a mic and I like it. I like the mic. I may not always be very like fluent in my speaking, but I do enjoy speaking
Being
and
in the front of the room,
almost,
commanding
yes,
attention,
yes, yeah,
being able to, I mean, really, it's also like helping people have fun.
yeah. I want to be able to pull them in
Yeah.
and then, yes, give them a good time while they're learning.
Well, what do you mean by pull them in? Like, how do you do that? You get up in front of the room and then what?
And just I don't know. I think it's just being me, being like making eye contact, like asking questions, like, you know, on some of our in-person events that we do, I'm usually like the one that's kick things off and welcome everybody and, you know, just ask, how have you been this last month or whatever, since I've seen them. And I like look them in the eyes and like just pulling my own energy up. Like sometimes I'm really tired in the beginning of the day, but if I step my energy up right away, they can feel it
Yeah.
and they reciprocate and they play along with me. So pulling them in is getting them to just be present in class and or whatever in the event. Just be present and make sure that I know that they're engaged right
Mm,
away in the beginning.
right. And
And people like that energy at the beginning too, right? Like
yeah,
if it's dead when you walk into a room, like it's going to be a really hard day.
that's such a good point. I think that's the truth for a classroom. It's the truth, like with, kids. It's true with adults. It doesn't matter. You mentioned like bringing that energy to the front of the room as the leader at the front of the room. What difference does it make when participants bring energy or not?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Because I also feed off of that energy, right?
Yeah.
Like I come in with it and I'll try and keep it up, but if I'm getting nothing back, it's really hard.
Yes.
Hard. Um, we actually had a client once where they were really struggling to wake up.
Mm.
And I did a little icebreaker with them that they didn't love. It it went okay for some of them, but for a lot of them, they hated it. And that was hard because I was trying to bring the energy up and they just didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So, it's challenging, but it's so much better when they play along, when they give the energy back, because it just sets us up for like success for the day, I feel like.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that idea of playing along, that one is something that we've really honed in on in the
Yeah,
last few years, just to be able to say, okay, this is what we really need from people
right.
for them to succeed, not just
Right.
for us
Right.
to be like, okay, being up in the front of the room, but like for them to succeed is when they play along, it's all
Yeah.
more fun.
Well, right. And I can't just always be serious. Like, we're learning things. We're
Yes.
not, my old boss had a saying, she'd always say, we're not curing cancer in somebody's basement. Like, we're learning things, we're trying to grow, we're trying to improve, move that needle of growth. Like, this is not like, it's okay to have a good time while doing it. And I
Mm,
think one of the challenges is when you've got me, who's pretty big extrovert and brings, a different amount of energy to the room, when you have maybe people that aren't as A, big of extroverts, or B, introverts that don't want to talk, that don't want to be a part of it, that don't want to have, they want to be the silent one in the classroom. But that's, we push them outside of that. Like, you gotta, like, just give it a chance. Give yourself a chance, give us a chance, play along, because you're going to be happier, you're going to learn more, you're going to grow. Yeah.
yeah. What other roles does a cruise director kind of person play? They get people to play along, apparently. And
Yeah. I think just like make sure that everything's going okay, like checking in, being there, someone that they can reach out to if they need anything, if there's any issues or anything like that. Hopefully they're confident enough to reach out to me. Yeah, just making sure everything stays on track, like we're reaching our goal, of whatever that looks like, whatever the goal is.
yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because there's some jobs that kind of tend to attract a quieter person. Some jobs attract a more exuberant person, maybe. And so that affects a room and how people interact. And I know that another thing that you do is you're able to get you're able to read the room, like there's something about that too. What is it? What do you think that you're bringing to that you're able to read the room? What are you seeing?
I guess it just depends on if I'm the one standing up front or I'm observing in the back, right? Because if
So
I'm the
true.
one standing up front and trying to read a room, it's a lot more challenging.
That's so
But and then I get like, if I am reading the room and I see if someone's just got this, face that doesn't want to get involved, that's looking skeptical, that's doing all whatever, that doesn't look like they're playing along. I get a little nervous and I start to like, I don't know how to get them. What do I do? And sometimes I shut down. It just kind of depends. That's why I need people to play along, even if you just smile at me a little bit. I don't need a lot. I just need a little like, okay, I see you, you know? Um, but then when I'm in the back of the room and I'm observing, it feels different. I'm able to see reactions. I'm able to see, okay, that didn't land so well. I can see some confused eyes, or I can see some confused looks. Um, like, note to self, like, let's either follow up with them or let's see if we can redirect or do something.
mm,
Um, and then on the flip side, when I can tell that they're really enjoying it, I can see that as well. Like, I can see that on their faces, or they're writing something down, taking notes. Okay, clearly that hit. So, you know, and then and if I can tell, like, if I'm reading the room and I can tell that like things are kind of going downhill, like we're just struggling, they're tired, maybe that's that after lunch feeling, or whatever. Um, then it's like, all right, let's take a step back, let's take a break, and then let's come back and do something engaging really quick to get involved and make sure that, we bring that energy level back up.
mm.
So
Yeah. I think this kind of reminds me of when we were little and our family did these, like, we would sing a lot at church, generally was where it was at.
Moomey
But
family singers.
yeah. And I remember plenty of times like looking out at the audience and looking for people's reactions and
Mhm.
visibly, or like I would feel like they're enjoying it, or they maybe, like, I remember one time seeing somebody, he was an older gentleman and his eyes were closed and his head was down.
He's
And
probably sleeping.
he probably was, but I was like, oh my gosh, he thinks that I'm horrible. He doesn't
Oh,
like what I'm
no.
singing or whatever, like there's all these like things that pop in your head when you're up in front.
Mhm.
And I think this is true for anybody. It's not just true for somebody that's a trainer or whatever, or a singer, but even when you're presenting, a
Totally.
leadership philosophy, which is something that our participants of programs do, or whatever. And there's so much that can go on in your head. Have you found any tricks that are helpful to you to deal with that?
Well, I don't look once I find that face that is not interested, I don't look at them again.
That's
I
fair.
try I try and not look back at them. I'm trying like change my focus, like don't look at them again. Sometimes I manage to, but yeah, that helps to look at people that are engaged.
Right, right. Find the friendly face in the room or something.
Which is why like example, the leadership philosophies, when they're giving their leadership philosophies, I'm always smiling and like nodding and like showing them visibly, like I'm
Yes.
hearing them. I see you. Don't get nervous. You're doing a good job. Like I'm trying
Right.
to give them those nonverbal cues, so that they don't get nervous because I'm stoic or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I remember feeling that that way when I was a teacher, a music teacher, and I had high school students. We'd go from like I'd have kindergartners that were just like, yay, life is wonderful and I
Right.
love my music teacher. Then the high schoolers come in and be like totally shut down. Like, I'm not going to show any emotion,
Right.
which you almost have to imagine that them as a kindergartner then. as a
Sure.
as a teacher, what I'm thinking is, okay, this is just a little kid. Like, they're not just a little kid. Like, I recognize that there's, I need to respect their how old they are and everything, but at the same time, like, they're just nervous, or they're just doing the high school thing or whatever.
Right.
I know that there's been other times in classes that, or training situations where somebody, you know, maybe interacts in a weird way and you're like, what is going on? And then you find out afterwards something is going on.
Yeah.
What kind of experience have you had with that?
Well, I think that's just like with anything, like any relationship for that matter, like
Mhm.
a friendship, coworker relationship, whatever it might be. Just knowing that an initial reaction that might be, um, I don't know, hard or they might have, bit back or, there might be frustrated or there might be mad or whatever might be. I think it's just important to always think, okay, step back and be like, it's not necessarily about me. Maybe there's something else going on. And, whether if it's in a big group, whether that's talking to them after and being like, hey, what's going on? You good? Are we good? Is
Yeah.
everything okay? Or just in the moment, if it's not a big group, just to stop in the tracks and be like, hey, everything good? Like with a kind of reaction like that, like clearly there might be something else going on. And a lot of times people don't feel the freedom to share that ahead of time
Right.
and maybe not vulnerable or whatever. And so it's hard to know. But just giving them the opportunity to share it, um, it really, it tears the walls down pretty quickly. And it just like makes you go, okay, that's where that reaction came from. And we're good. Like we can move past it. It's okay. I'm not offended or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've had to, like, sometimes you don't actually get a chance to ask.
Right.
And so you have to like tell you could tell yourself all kinds of stories. So like, what story are you going to tell yourself? Are you going to tell
Right.
yourself that they hate you? It's all about you? Or are you going to tell yourself that they're having a bad day and you can't own that for them?
Right. I'm pretty good about letting things go.
Hmm.
Um, just because I don't know. I don't like them to fester. I don't like to think about things for very long. So I'm pretty good about, well, I don't know what that was about. I guess if it was about me, if they want to talk to me, cool. If not, it is what it is. Like, move on.
Yeah.
So,
I know that this might tie into something that I've heard you talk about quite a bit over the last few years about something that you have kind of learned for yourself or changed in some way in terms of trying to make other people happy, basically,
mm,
and not always being able to do that or
yeah.
owning other people's emotions. Can you talk to me about that? What?
Yeah. It's a strength and a weakness, right?
Yeah.
Um, People pleasing is certainly something that I've kind of feel like I've probably done my whole life. Not necessarily putting myself first, putting them others first, and then being the one that's hurt in the end because I've not given myself enough attention or time or whatever. But I think the thing that I've really like tried to learn is like, yeah, I want to please people. I want to do whatever that is that's going to make them happy or whatever they need. I want to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, I cannot be the one, I can't own it. I can't own their emotional reaction. I need to give them the opportunity to work through it. I've seen, you know, in a classroom where someone clearly was not happy. Like they weren't happy with what was said, whether it was me or somebody else that said it. I'm not sure, but I could just tell they were like very frustrated, and you could tell by their response that they were mad and working through things. And I didn't go up to them after to make sure they were okay, which normally I would want to because I want to make sure everybody's happy and good. But I didn't because they need to work through their emotion. Like they need to work through it. I can't own it. They came, they had that reaction. Now they need to like work through it. And hopefully they'll come to me or whoever if there is an issue, but if not, that's on them. Like they're working through that. That's their growth, not mine.
Hmm.
So,
That's a good point. I mean, that's a hard thing to come to when you are a people pleaser, like from birth, and you're just good at it. Like the woo, it's
yeah,
winning others over. I
right.
mean, if you can't win them over, then one of your biggest strengths becomes
Right.
this like, I failed at it, or you really believe that you can do it, so you're gonna like,
Right.
push forward even more or something. And I do think that that is it's a hard thing to like kind of come to in life when you
Yeah.
feel that way.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of the people pleasing has come from like trying to achieve,
Mm.
right? Achieve whatever that might be. Achieve a friendship, achieve, success in the classroom, achieve success with training, or get the next job or get the next promotion or whatever. If I don't achieve whatever it is I was like trying to please somebody,
Mhm.
to do, then I would get really down or frustrated or disappointed or mad or sad or whatever it was. And I'm like, why am I like, that's not mine. I can't win people over just by pleasing them all the time. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah. You can't. I mean, I think that's part of it is letting it go.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of our models talk about the sphere of responsibility. I know you talk about this
Right. Mm-hmm.
sphere of some things you take responsibility for, some things you can influence,
Yes.
but then you get to a point where you have to either go or let go.
Yeah. That model has been huge in my life in the last few years, for sure. Sphere of influence versus the sphere of responsibility. What
Mm-hmm.
is mine? What can I own? What in this scenario can I own? And really, like, it was quite the job shift from before where I was leading teams and leading people to now not. Yes, leading in a different capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just my day to day is not just leading people all day, right? And so like that because of that change, that's also changed like my workflow and what I'm doing throughout the days. And there are some times where like I internalize or I'm like, "Oh, I need to figure this out or I need to do this." I'm like, "No, that's not within my responsibility." Like I just need to like wait it out and see what happens. I can give an opinion, but at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility.
Mm,
So it's just something that's really impacted me over the last few years.
yeah.
And with not just work, but friendships, relationships,
Yeah.
etc.
What tips do you have for people who want to influence somebody that they're working with? Me. Um, okay. In a different setting, we would call this influencing up. In our setting, we don't because we don't look at it as a hierarchy.
Yeah.
But you knowing me and what I need or what I need, what you need me to do or whatever, like what are some things that you've figured out about that?
I think a lot of it's just, yeah, like knowing you enough to know like when is the right time to bring something up or push something like that I need from you or whatever. Like I can read you enough as not only like as a coworker, but also like my sister, right? And my friend. I know when it's not gonna work, where I just need to let me just write that down and we'll come back to it another time because
Fair.
this is not the right time. And that's okay too. Um, or, the thing that I mean, you do often ask, the question, whatever, like you do want to know my opinion.
Mm,
And so, sometimes I feel confident in sharing it and sometimes I don't. So I think it's just feeling out like where we're at and what it is I'm confident in sharing and influencing.
and that's really what it is the influencing each other, mutual influence.
Mhm.
Because of some of the stuff, I could say the same thing, like
Mhm. Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm not over like stepping over boundaries that we've kind of set up in terms of
Right.
when we're working and when we're familying, when
Right.
we're friending,
Right.
when you're anting and when you're not, like
Right.
it's just, I don't know how to explain it. There's no rules for us. Like there's no, we can't tell other people how to do this other than to
Right.
say, we figured out how to make this flow and we just
Right.
know each other well enough that
Right.
when you need to be Aunt Danielle, it's not like I'm bringing up work stuff. Even if it's on my
Right.
mind, I'm doing the same thing, like trying to write it down and think about it later. Okay,
Right.
I'll bring this up on Monday when she's actually working.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking, something I was thinking about with influence and stuff. One of the things that I think I struggle with is knowing when to influence, like when to raise my voice.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way, like as far as I can remember.
Hmm.
And the first time that somebody called it out was years ago. It was probably, gosh, 2000 and like 5. Who
Oh,
knows? Something like that. And one of my friends, I had a pretty good like group of friends at that time, like pretty large group of friends.
sure. Young adults.
Young adults, yeah, we were
Yeah.
in that stage. We're all in the same phase of life and
Hmm.
all the things. Anyway, and I just remember we were all together one day and listening. Somebody was sharing some stuff that was going on with them, and it was really hard. And a lot of people had their opinions. And then when I finally spoke, like somebody kind of started talking over me, and one of my friends was like, "No, no, stop. Like when Danielle speaks, you listen." Because Danielle doesn't speak very often. And I think that's the thing about me is that like if in a setting like that or in front of a classroom or whatever, I'm not going to speak unless I've really thought it over in my head. Like I want to make sure that what I'm saying is accurate, is factual, is correct. That's why like I don't just run my mouth all the time because I don't want somebody to come back and tell me I was wrong
Mm,
because I said something that was incorrect or whatever. Like I want to be right, but it's not it's not about wanting to be right. It's about wanting to just say the right thing at the right time or whatever.
Mm.
So I just thought it was funny at that time. I was like, oh my gosh. And it's not like a hoity-toity thing either. It's like I don't talk that much. I don't give my opinion that much on things. So if I'm gonna give it, it's gonna be well thought out.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just still kind of how I am. Um I'm asked sometimes to give opinions and I'm like, I'll have one. And I struggle with that. I had a boss once that he was like, every time you get put on the spot, you shut down. I was like, yeah, because I need to think about what I want to say ahead of time, and I'm not good at just being put on the spot. And I need some time. And he's like, well, then you just need to say that. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know how to. I don't know. It's always been so awkward for me to be like, let me think about it and get back to you, which is the right thing to do. People do it all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I've always struggled with that. So
Right.
something I've trying to get better at, but
What have you noticed, or have you found any tricks that have been helpful?
just the whole, just what I said. Let
Mhm.
me think about it. I'll get back to you. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still thinking about that. I've got some ideas, but I really need to like think through it.
Yeah.
Just being honest and transparent about where my brain is in the
Yeah.
moment, and instead of just freezing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's like this misunderstanding from people, like an extrovert doesn't necessarily think out loud. They
No.
might feel out loud, but they don't necessarily think out loud. So they might be able to connect very easily, but it might be difficult to process an idea out loud. And so, like, there's things that we extrovert and then there's things that we introvert. And for you,
Mhm.
you extrovert the feeling and you introvert the thinking. And so it just takes, that means that the thinking has to happen in here and then it can
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah.
And I'm generally an introverted thinker as well. It's just, I think so much. I try to prepare myself for all kinds of all kinds of things. I
Right.
asked my son the other day, okay, he's going to be in high school. Your nephew.
Yes.
I asked him
Boy.
the other day, okay, so if a girl asks you to homecoming, what will you do? What will you say? And he's like, what? I'm thinking, you got to think through these things. And he's like, I don't have to think about something that's probably not going to happen 3 months in advance, mom. But I mean, I think that's the trait of the, like, you to be able, like, that's one of the reasons why I like to write, and is because I like to think through the things first before I can say them out loud what I really want to say. So I
Yeah.
get it. I feel like, oh, that's something that we both have. We're both extroverts technically, but then that's something that we do introverted, which is okay. It's just we have to have a way to navigate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times I have to re-ask questions on the podcast and I edit it out. Shh, don't tell anybody. One thing about you, Danielle, is that you're the cool aunt, not just to your niece and nephew, but just in general. This is like a persona you have too. Is the cool
My
aunt? You're not.
goal.
What's that?
It's my goal.
Yeah, you're like to your friends' kids and to, I mean, a lot of people, to a lot of kids. What is that? Why you said that's your goal? Why? Why is that your goal?
Because I want to be the cool one. I mean, you said it. I don't know. Because I guess I don't know. That's just, I
So
don't know.
here's what I see. Here's what I see.
Okay.
I see you doing things like taking ice cream to your friends' kids on a bad day. And I think that woman wants those kids to feel loved and seen
For
and cared
sure.
for.
For sure.
It's not just fun and games or whatever, but like
Oh, yeah.
it
Totally.
is, but it's also,
That's the mom. That's my mom and me, right?
yeah,
Mom always wanted that for kids as our preschool teacher, right? She went down when she wanted those kids to feel loved and wanted them to feel seen. And I
yeah,
think that's, yeah, for sure. That's mom and me.
yeah, yeah. How does that work out in the rest of your life? Like,
I think that's always, I mean, that's been me in general. I mean, the older I get, the harder it is. The harder is, the more tired I get. No, but I think that's just in general, like I've always been that one that even if I get frustrated with things or people, um, it doesn't change the fact that I want them to feel loved. And so I
Mm,
try and figure out, like, I bring them something, or always done little gifts. Like, even though I get frustrated with the people that in my apartment complex, the leasing office, I still bring them stuff. I'm like, well, I'm gonna still bring you something. It's like if you have a bad experience with a at a restaurant with a waitress or a server, I'm still gonna tip you 25%. Like, I'm gonna be annoyed, but you still deserve it, and I want you to feel seen.
wow.
So just
And that, I mean, to me, that's, I know that you, like some people might think, oh, well, she's probably just doing that to get something in return. But like you're talking about the restaurant server that you might not see again.
absolutely.
So why do you care?
I don't know. Just always been that way. It's innate. And I think that I do. Like, I mean, there is what I get in return if I see some joy out of it, then I get joy, you
Mm,
know? Like, that is what I get in return.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't, I don't, that's fine.
Well, Danielle, I'm really glad that we could have this conversation. It's taken us a while to get to this point where we're like, okay, let's just do this. We got it. We've been talking about it for
Yeah.
literally years
Yeah.
about getting you on the show. But I'm definitely want to have you back again soon. In fact, we'll probably just do it very soon.
Hmm.
Um, and we can keep the conversation going between us too. But if anybody has any questions for us about working with siblings
Yeah.
and all that, gosh,
Bring it
I tell
on.
you what, I just am so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you're close. I was glad that you were here throughout mom's the last years of mom's life and being together through all that. I'm glad that we had that freedom together to be able to take care of things. And now, through these years also, you've been here for our children
Mhm.
and been able to connect with them. You always connected with them anyway from a long distance, but to actually be able to be present for some things, more
Mhm.
things than ever. And
Absolutely.
they love to come visit you. And of course, and it's been so worth, I mean, not just worth it, it's just been so gratifying to have you on our team,
Yeah,
be on a
it's been
team together.
fun. It's been a lot of fun. I know in the beginning, Dad was, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
He was very worried about it, you know? Which I get. I get the concern, and not everything is perfect. It's not all like, roses and whatever, but it's not, we figured it out. There's
Yes.
like some weird special sauce that we have, and it's, when people ask me, I do say I was like, well, it's because I have a sister that's very curious and compassionate and listens and doesn't like come at me. We do compliment each other in a lot of ways. Um, I'm not the thinker that you're talking about, that you are. But I am the doer. I like to do things, so I can at least, take what you have and run with it.
Mm,
But yeah, it's just worked. I don't know.
yeah. And what's interesting is that it's not like we were pretty close when we were younger, but then like in high school,
Yeah,
it's not like we were the closest of close.
no, not during that time.
But we figured it out. I think that's so important. Just that's part of what I hope that we can help people do is learn how to work it out together.
Right,
We don't have to, it's not always a go or let go situation.
right.
It's a lot of times it's influence each other. It's speak up about the things that you think that matter. Um yeah. So anyway, I'm really glad that we can do that. So
Yeah,
thank you for being here today and
yeah.
for being a voice of influence. Really
Yes.
appreciate it. For me, for our listeners, our kids,
Thank
our
you.
family, all the things.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.